Hi there everyone, this is Zach again. So, when I beat Extreme Heights with just Flaming Fury, I did it with no stalls. People stayed in the park doing nothing but wandering for literal decades actually. So, it got me wondering, how useful are stalls actually? I'm beginning to notice a trend in my videos here. For this video, I'm going to be using RollerCoaster Tycoon Classic. I plan on doing a separate one for Open RCT2 because the effects of stalls are different between Classic and Open RCT2 / Vanilla game. In addition, because this video is taking me a while, it will be divided into two parts. Part 1 will focus on testing various scenarios without stalls in Amity Airfield, and in Part 2, I'll be using a Mega Park and seeing how removing various kinds of stalls affects it. With that, let's begin by returning to our good old friend Amity Airfield. Known for being very difficult and ruining many kids' childhoods, I decided to build a park here with no stalls, so no food, drinks, bathrooms, kiosks, balloons, ATMs, etc. In addition, I'm adding some restrictions. These include not deleting the airport. I can add minor modifications to it for aesthetic purposes. The reason for this is because for the most part, people won't be deleting everything when building a park. They'll be working with what's there already. Plus, it'll make the challenge more interesting. In addition, there will be no advertising. I want the guest generation to be as natural as possible. I also don't want to use advertising to get out of a sticky situation where I'm getting stalled out due to too many guests wanting to leave. I'm also not going to spam entertainers everywhere. I'll still allow them to be hired as well as other staff, but I can't go and hire 50 of them because they played a major factor in my Extreme Heights video to the point where they caused guests to stay in the park for way longer than they should have. So, I'm gonna minimize their influence. Again, I just want this to be a natural park that anyone would build. I also can't do stuff like build tiny microcoasters or spam a lot of the same ride to get more guests. Again, it needs to be natural. The rides I'll be building will probably be on the smaller side, but that's mainly because with no advertising, and the fact you can't charge for the rides in this park puts money on the stricter side. With that introduction done, let's begin. So naturally, I'm gonna start by building stuff towards the front of the park. I built a few things like some space rings, a mini suspended coaster, a monorail, etc. Nothing negative should happen yet since the park just opened. As I said, I won't be building microcoasters. However, smaller coasters like this compact inverted one are still okay due to money limitations. Plus, the more rides I have, the more guests I can get. After a few weeks of building rides at the start, I move on ahead towards the airport. Something that I did as a kid was build rides over the airstrip. They look cool going over everything. Plus, suspended rides like this monorail or the train stangle give a very nice flying aesthetic. Now I go ahead and charge $45 for the entrance. It's the maximum amount you can charge for Amity Airfield and still have guests come in since they spawn with a minimum of $45. There is, however, a concern with this. Because some guests will be walking around with no money from spending all of it at the start, I could see some of them leaving more quickly. Plus, I'm charging for the photos which may influence things. I'm not sure if that'll have an impact, but if necessary, I can test to see if guests are more likely to stay with a lower park entrance. Note that this issue can be negated with the cash machine, which I cannot build. So something weird occurs when building the flying roller coaster. The pieces that enter and exit this banked curve don't exist for some reason. They were not implemented. Well, I guess the roller coaster trains travel on magic or something? Yeah, this game is weird. I mean, the fact that I can build a park with no food or anything like that already conveys this. It's September year 1. I just hit 1,000 guests. Looking at them, we see that there are a couple dozen that want to leave. In case you're wondering why I'm mentioning guests leaving, it's because they influence the park rating. There are several factors that do so, which I explained in my Amity Airfield where I beat it with actually nothing. A major factor that let me do that was the number of guests considered lost. For the most part, a guest that's leaving a park is considered lost. Again, I'm not sure what causes this, but that seems to be the trend. If too many are, the park rating begins dropping a lot. And if this rating drops too much, guests begin spawning less. So right now, since I have a rating of 999 and tons of rides, they're spawning as fast as they can. However, if the rating drops too much, even with tons of rides, they'll spawn less, making it a lot harder to get to 3,000 people. But, at least for now, the park rating is doing just fine, minus the fact everyone is tired and famished. Stop complaining, I'll feed y'all later. Give you soda, maybe a bathroom. Just go on the ground, I don't care. Throughout building this park, I'm constantly having to hire handyman or place them in specific spots. This is something that the first aid stall could help mitigate. That's because when guests use the first aid stall, it decreases their nausea rating. Going into year 2, things are still okay. Our guests are overall very happy, despite starving and really need to use a toilet. However, the number that are leaving the park is going up. Now, as I said earlier, that doesn't mean they're all lost, as there seems to be more factors involved in them trying to leave. However, since I'm around 12,050 guests, and I need 3,000 to beat it, I'll probably end up getting too many guests considered lost. The park will eventually crumble. And as the year progresses, that crumbling unfortunately begins. As expected, the park rating begins to plummet due to all the tired guests wanting to leave. As it seems, this looks like it's not going to work. I do stop building rides and speed up the game to see if anything improves. However, over a few months, the park does not improve at all. In fact, the rating drops more. Yeah, this is bad. I'm more so surprised someone hasn't come along yet to shut down this park for breaking at least dozens of violations. You know what? I'm giving up and building some stalls. This will obviously fix things, and as soon as I build them, the park quickly improves. So, yeah, stalls definitely do help. Hey, at least I gave them food, even if it took literal years. I can be a nice guy, I promise. I mean, I wouldn't do anything like drowning thousands at a time, committing mass genocide. What do you mean? I never do that, After seeing this, I do wonder something. A lot of guests were trying to leave. However, Amity Airfield is pretty spread apart, so the fact some of them had to walk from the back of the park kept them there for longer. So, I wondered, what if I built a cramped park near the entrance? That way, guests can quickly leave. I'm just trying this to see what this kind of park will yield, and for more excuses to make everyone Patrick without water. With that out of the way, let's see what happens. So, unlike last time, I will be allowing microcoasters and multiple of the same ride. That way, I can get the guest generation up as quickly as possible. I won't be spamming entertainers or using advertisements though. At 1,000 guests, this is where the park is at. Every ride is smaller and basically right next to each other. Only a few people want to leave because they can exit right away, which is a big improvement from before, and the starvation once again proceeds. Hopefully this time I won't have to feed you. At 2,000 guests, things are doing a lot better than before. The park rating is still maxed out. Wow. And looking at the number of guests leaving, where is it? Hello? Hello? Ah, there it is. The number leaving is only a few more than before. Also, something I noticed, when doing this experiment, I didn't really look at the guests who were thirsty or needing to use the bathroom. Don't worry, I'll be getting more to that in part 2 when I test the effects that those kinds of stalls have on everyone. But I guess for now, ignoring hunger complaints will have to do. By this point, I speed up the game and let the park run by itself. However, I began to notice the guest generation is slowing down. I was able to gain over 500 guests in the second half of year 2. However, in the first half of year 3, I only gain around 200 or so. This could be due to not enough rides possibly. So to fix this, I go ahead and build some more rides to be on the safe side. And then also hire some more staff to compensate for the extra rides and guests. By the middle of year 4, I'm almost at the winning goal. The park rating is still maxed out, and the number leaving is still not that many, which is great. I'm on pace to beat this park with no stalls, and by March of next year, I have done it. I have beaten Amity Airfield with no stalls. See, who needs toilets in a theme park? I can successfully run a business with no plumbing. I do business good. So yeah, it seems that as long as everything is close to where the exit is, stalls don't matter too much. But if everything is spaced out, they make a significant difference actually. One thing I did notice, in this park, I had a ton of benches. This is significant because guests gain energy if they sit down. If we look at Francis here, he is incredibly tired and has very low energy. However, he has just started sitting down. As soon as I unpause the game, he begins to regain his energy, enough to the point that he is no longer tired. Once he gets off the bench and starts walking, Francis begins losing energy once more. And, as we saw, the guests leaving Amity Airfield were usually tired. So first off, I go back and add tons of benches everywhere to the original park. And I mean everywhere. Like, you cannot go 2 inches without some bench beckoning you. At this point, it should be called Amity Benchfield. So, after all these benches, is it helping? Well, the rating isn't going down as much as before. It's around 900 or so. One thing I want to see is if I don't have enough rides to get more guests. I go ahead and build some microcoasters around the park to see if there is any improvement. And there was-ish. I got more guests this time, like 200 to 300 more. But yeah, the park just ended up dying in the long run. Once I got enough guests that were lost, the rating plummeted. However, this version of Amity Airfield had everything spread apart. How about when everything is cramped together? So with the compact park, I go ahead and remove every guest, fix all the benches, and reset the park to year 1 with the park scenario editor. Since the rides are already there and I want to minimize bias, I test 2 parks, one with benches and one without. That way, I'm not comparing the benchless park over 4 years to a park that was in construction through half its lifetime. Then I let both Amity Airfields run from March year 1 until March year 5. Now, let's see if benches make a difference with everything close together. To make a long story short, there was a major one. The park with no benches was doing great at first. In fact, things were going on almost the same pace as before. However, by the time I get to March of year 3, I began to stagnate at around 2,000 guests. And many months later, it unfortunately stayed that way, and continued to, and by year 5 I lost. So yeah, I did not succeed this time. I did keep a high rating the entire time too, with the number of guests leaving being around 40 to 60 towards the end. On the flip side though, the park with benches did just as well as when I was building the park. In fact, I managed to get it to year 5 with even more guests than before, likely due to the fact I had everything at the start. But yeah, it seems that benches do make a difference and the park is pretty compact. It offsets the fact that there are no stalls. As to why benches worked, here's what I think happened. A big thing that determines whether a guest stays is if they go on rides. With no benches, guests couldn't get re-energized as easily. This meant more were tired. Thus, they were walking slowly and couldn't get to rides as quickly. As a result, more decided to leave. Meanwhile, with benches, more guests gained energy and could get to rides faster, causing them to stay longer. So that's the first part of the experiment done. Like I said earlier, I plan on testing more things with actual stalls in part 2. And let me tell you, the results I got had some things I did not expect. So be on the lookout for that when that's ready. In the meantime, if you enjoyed part 1, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you all so much for watching and have a good day.